So, the Capitolian Triad. Hi there and big welcome to a let's go not so CEDH card review for this thing. Let's go EDH or kind of powerful card review for this thing. So it is a 10 mana cost colorless legendary creature god artificer 7/7 with an ability those who came before. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each historic card in your graveyard. Artifact, legendaries and sagas are historic. Then exile any number of historic cards from your graveyard with total mana value of 30 or greater as an activated ability. And then you get an emblem with creatures you control have a base power and toughness of 9/9. Which is like a permanent effect that stays on even though this would theoretically disappear. So I personally think this is an awesome looking card. I love the design, everything about it. I'm so happy with it and I don't want to change anything. But let's begin and explain kind of why it's not so good inside this competitive commander format. First and foremost, this thing demands a form of build-up, quite a big one too. You need to fill your graveyard with a lot of Cheerios, a lot of artifacts in general, or just legendaries in general kinda as well. But once you have, you can basically cast this for 0 mana. And like a 0 mana 7/7, that's kinda amazing. But the problem is that that build-up is just too slow. It will never really theoretically happen. Or it will happen, but just not fast enough. There is a lot of different things you can do, like mill yourself. There's a lot of Underworld Breach that usually milling themselves. But then in the end, if you're doing that, you already have a pretty good game plan without it, potentially, depending on. The second part why this is bad is that it's only like an overrun effect, which is kind of okay sometimes when you wanna smash people down as a plan C plan, so to say. The problem is that that is also too slow. You're probably going to die to some form of combo throughout the match against some other opponents of yours. So you need more interaction, and this doesn't interact in any shape or form. It is just making everything you have huge. But there is one specific commander that might actually play it, and I do think that Yuriko Tiger Shadow might actually include this thing. Because Yuriko Tiger Shadow doesn't really care what the card actually does. I mean, she's playing Emrakul the Promised End, I've seen Draco, I've seen cards inside Yuriko that are there only to be expensive, and this is only expensive. But this is something Yuriko theoretically could cost. I mean, the spell costs 1 less to cast for each historic card in your graveyard. Lotus Petal, eventually Yuriko will lose some of her other artifacts here and there, and maybe down the road Yuriko might be able to actually cast this thing. Like imagine Yuriko Demir flipping into this, everyone is losing 10 life, and then you cast your 7/7 for free. And then you attack with this thing, and you ninja something, and you recast this for free. It is not impossible that you reach that. Or well, let's just go with, it is not impossible that you're reducing the casting cost to something around 4 to 5 or 3, or maybe 2. So I could honestly see a world where Yuriko Tiger Shadow are actually experimenting with this weird thing to follow through with her game plan of Yuriko Burns, using Scroll Rack and other things to put this on top of her library and just re-flipping it. Or eventually, if things go strange, actually cast it. But I want to go back a little bit more towards the design of this card. I do enjoy concepts that are building over time. Like the longer the game goes, certain cards just become more prevalent. And this is a card that is demanding some form of structure in your graveyard, and that is happening in a futuristic pathway in your match, usually. I really hope that the Wizard of the Coast keeps making other designs similar to this, with other certain tricks. I could see a world where you're doing the exact same thing, but in instant and sorceries. There are a few variants to that already actually. But imagine something like a same mana cost, 10 colorless, it costs 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard, and you exile a mana value of 30 or more and cast all of those spells from your graveyard without paying the mana cost as a one-time use. That could be cool, and honestly, might actually be something people would play inside this format. So the concept that we're seeing here is rather cool and definitely worth talking about. It's just that the effects of it isn't really where you want to go with in a competitive CEDH game. But inside casual, and definitely inside 1v1, I can see a world where this would be very strong in some other 1v1 formats. And I have a feeling this is going to be extremely expensive because of that. I don't play that much other 1v1 formats currently, so I don't know what kind of price tag this would end up with. As a commander, it's actually kinda cool. It would function as a pretty interesting casual commander, like free to cast eventually, and then just make all of your Thopters into monsters. That would be badass, but it would still also be kinda casual. But it would be a pretty cool plan. Like, it's not impossible to actually achieve that. Imagine just a build that is filling your graveyard with artifacts in general, colorless commander of course, and then building a lot of Thopters or other zero cost or other token artifacts that are 1/1s. Boom, cast this, and boom, make everything into enormous, attack and win. You know what, that's actually kinda semi-competitive. Might actually work out. That game plan where you're basically winning from the command zone in all colors wouldn't really work out, once again in CDH format, but in lower power levels it could definitely smash and be quite consistent too. You don't really need to tutor for anything, because everything is in your command zone. So as a pretty cool, weaker combo game plan, you have something going for you here. Over and in the command zone. Don't rule that one out. Thanks for watching guys, see you around.